you're standing over the ball. Your head is full of instructions. Keep the left arm straight, turn the shoulders, shift the hips, don't come over the top, and you still watch it slice into the trees. Here's what I found after years of doing exactly that. The best ball strikers who ever lived were not thinking about any of it. There is one single feeling that makes the entire swing work, and almost nobody teaches it anymore. It was proven by a man who played championship golf on one leg, and the drill that teaches it was written down in a small book in 1952, then quietly pushed aside. Stay with me, and I will hand you that exact drill. You can do it tonight, in your living room, with a house key and a shoelace you already own. No launch monitor, no lesson, no new clubs. I remember the day this cracked open for me. I was standing on the range at my little municipal course, $40 poorer from a lesson I'd just taken, hitting one weak fade after another, when an older gentleman 2 mats down knocked it dead straight without any warm-up at all. I asked him what he was thinking about. He smiled and said, "Nothing, I just swing the weight." I didn't understand it then. I laughed it off, honestly. I thought he was being cute or lucky, or that he'd played so long the mechanics were baked in and he'd simply forgotten what he was doing. So I went home and did what I always did. I looked up more tips, more positions, more checkpoints, and that is exactly the trap. Because the more I studied the modern golf swing, the worse I got, and the more money I spent trying to fix it. Let me tell you how bad it got. Over about 3 years, I bought 2 new drivers. I paid for 11 lessons. I bought a training aid that strapped my arm to my chest, another one that beeped when my wrists hinged wrong, and a mat that lit up green or red. I spent all in somewhere north of $2,000. And my handicap went up. It actually went up. Here is the thing nobody was telling me. The modern golf swing, the way it gets taught today, has been chopped into dozens of separate moving parts. Takeaway position, wrist set, top of backswing, transition, downswing plane, impact position, follow through. Each one gets its own drill, its own gadget, its own lesson, and every single one is something else you can do wrong. Think about what that does to a person standing over a ball. You cannot consciously control 8 things in a motion that takes about 1.5 seconds from start to finish. Nobody can. The tour players cannot do it either. They just don't tell you that in the beginner video. So I started asking a different question. Not, what position am I missing? But how did people learn this before there were 100 positions to learn? How did golfers in the 1800s and early 1900s, with no video, no launch monitor, no slow motion camera, learn to strike a ball beautifully? Because they did. The old swings were gorgeous, smooth, powerful, repeating. And that question led me straight to a name I had never heard in any modern golf channel, in any lesson, in any magazine. A name that once I found it, changed the way I saw the entire game. Ernest Jones. Now, before I tell you who he was, I want you to sit with why you have probably never heard of him. Because this is where it stops being a story about golf and starts being a story about something bigger. There is a reason the simplest, most effective way to learn the swing got buried under all that complication. There is a reason the modern instruction world would rather sell you 11 lessons than one idea. And the reason is exactly what you think it is. A simple idea you can learn in an afternoon does not create repeat customers. It does not sell training aids. It does not fill lesson calendars. There is no money in you figuring it out and walking away fixed. A complicated swing, one you can never quite master, one that always needs one more tune-up, one more gadget, one more lesson now, that is a business. That is a customer for life. I am not saying every teacher is a crook. Most of them are good people who learned a complicated system and are passing it on in good faith. But the system itself, the whole machinery of modern golf instruction, has a quiet incentive to keep you dependent. And Ernest Jones spent his life fighting exactly that. So who was he? Ernest Jones was born in England in 1887. He grew up around golf, and by his early 20s, he was a fine young professional, a genuine talent, with a bright playing career ahead of him. He was the assistant professional at the Chislehurst Club near London. Good enough to compete. Good enough that people expected big things. Then came the war. In 1916, fighting in the First World War, Ernest Jones was hit by a grenade. The wound was catastrophic. Surgeons amputated his right leg below the knee. He was 29 years old. A professional athlete whose entire life was built on balance, on footwork, on the athletic move through a golf ball, and now he had one leg. You would think that is the end of the golf story. It is where the golf story truly begins. Because just weeks after the amputation, while he was still recovering, Ernest Jones had himself taken out to a golf course. He balanced on his one good leg. He couldn't shift his weight the way the textbooks demanded. He couldn't drive his hips or push off the ground or do any of the athletic footwork that instruction says you need. He could barely stay upright. And playing on that single leg, unable to do almost anything the correct swing required, Ernest Jones went out and shot an 83 over 18 holes. Not long after, still on one leg, he broke 72. He shot par golf on one leg. Sit with that for a second. Everything the modern swing tells you is essential. The weight shift, the hip drive, the ground force, the lower body power. Ernest Jones could not do any of it. And he played better than 99% of people reading about two-legged swing mechanics today. So he asked the only question that mattered. If I can do this with one leg, then all those things I can't do, they must not be the real secret. What is left? What is the one thing I am still doing that actually makes the ball fly? And the answer he arrived at, the answer he spent the next 40 years of his life teaching, is the thing that old man on the range told me, and I was too proud to hear. You swing the club head. That's it. That is the whole secret. You do not move your body in order to move the club. You swing the club head, the weight on the end of the shaft, and you let that swinging weight tell your body what to do. Now, I know how that sounds. When I first read it, I thought the same thing you might be thinking right now. That is too simple. That cannot possibly be the answer. Real improvement has to be more complicated than that, or everyone would already know it. But stay with me, because there is real science under this, and it is the part that finally made me believe. After the war, Ernest Jones moved to the United States. He set up a teaching studio in New York City, and over the following decades, he became one of the most sought-after instructors in the country. He taught thousands of students in a small indoor studio, many of them hitting into a net, and he turned duffers into fine players faster than anyone around. In 1937, he put his ideas into a first book, and in 1952, he published the one that matters most, a small volume titled Swing the Club Head. And in that studio, he did something to prove his point that I want you to picture, because it is the whole thing in one image. He would take out a pocket knife, a simple folding penknife, and he would tie it to the end of a handkerchief or sometimes a length of string. Then he'd hold the loose end between two fingers and let the knife hang down like a little pendulum. Then he would swing it back and through. And the knife, that weight on the end of the cloth, would trace a perfect arc. A perfect, smooth, repeating swing plane every single time. Now here's the question he'd ask the student. How did the weight know what path to travel? He never set its position. He never worried about the takeaway of the knife, or the knife's wrist hinge, or the knife's plane. He simply swung the weight and the string organized itself. The string stayed taut, the arc came out perfect. Automatically, your arms and the club are that string and that weight. The club head is the knife. When you swing the club head as a weight, when you actually feel its heft moving back and through your arms, stay extended on their own, exactly like the string pulling taut. The plane organizes itself. The lag happens by itself. You do not have to manufacture any of it. This is not folk wisdom. This is basic physics. A weight swinging on a flexible line under centrifugal force naturally travels a smooth arc and naturally pulls the line straight. It is the same reason a ball on a string swung in a circle keeps the string tight. Ernest Jones understood, back before we had the fancy equipment to measure it, that the golf swing is governed by that exact principle. The club head is the weight. Everything else is just the string doing what a string does when a weight swings it. And here is why this destroys the complicated approach. When you focus on body positions, you freeze the string. You grab it in the middle, you tug on it, you try to steer it, and you kill the very force that makes the arc work. A student trying to consciously control his backswing plane is doing the exact thing that guarantees he never will control it. He has stopped swinging the weight. He is now carrying it. I read that and I put the book down and I felt a little sick, honestly. Because I thought about the $2,000. I thought about the arm strap and the beeping wrist gadget and the light up mat. Every one of those things was training me to control the string and ignore the weight. Every one of them was teaching me the exact opposite of the thing that actually works. And somebody sold each one to me. But it gets more interesting, because I wanted to know how a method this effective, taught by a man this respected, could vanish so completely that I'd never once heard his name. So I kept digging, and what I found is the pattern this whole channel exists to expose. If what I've shared so far has already shifted something in the way you see this game, I've put everything, the full story of Ernest Jones, the drills, and the deeper context behind why this method was buried into a digital book called First Swing. And there's a link in the description below if you want to go deeper at your own pace. For those who want more, the same series continues in deeper fixes and the complete full system, each one building on the last, no fluff, no gadgets, just the honest mechanics that actually hold up. Take a look when you're ready, and now let me show you the exact image that makes all of this click into place. Ernest Jones was enormously respected in his time. Serious golf writers of the mid-1900s knew exactly who he was. His book sold well. His students adored him. He proved his method thousands of times over in that New York studio. By any honest measure, it worked, and it worked better and faster than the alternatives. Then two things happened. First, the camera arrived. Once instruction could show a still frame of a great player at the top of the backswing, teaching shifted from feel to position. Suddenly you could freeze the swing and point at things. And pointing at things is easy to sell, easy to package, easy to turn into a lesson series. A feeling is hard to photograph. You cannot put swing the weight in a freeze frame with arrows drawn on it. So the industry drifted, naturally, toward the thing that photographed well and sold well, and away from the thing that actually taught people fastest. Second, and this is the quiet part, feel-based teaching is bad for business. If I teach you to feel the club head and you get it in an afternoon, our relationship is over. You leave happy and you never come back. But if I teach you a system of positions you can never quite perfect, you will be back next month and the month after that for the rest of your golfing life. One of those models pays the mortgage. Guess which one won? So Ernest Jones did not get debunked. Nobody proved him wrong. His method was never beaten on the merits. It was simply less profitable to teach and harder to photograph, and so it slid out of fashion and out of memory, and a couple of generations of golfers grew up never knowing it existed. The knowledge wasn't destroyed. It was just allowed to gather dust, because dust doesn't cost the industry anything, and clarity does. Now, maybe right now you are thinking this is not for you. Maybe you are older. Maybe your back is stiff, your hips don't turn like they used to, you were never an athlete, and every golf video online is some flexible 25-year-old telling you to load into your trail side and explode through impact, and you have quietly decided the good swing is just not available to a body like yours. I want to talk to you specifically for a minute because this next part was built for exactly you. Ernest Jones's whole discovery came from a body that could not do the athletic stuff. He had one leg, he could not load, could not explode, could not drive off the ground. His entire method exists precisely because he had to throw out everything that requires a young, strong, flexible, two-legged body. What was left is the part that works for anyone, at any age, with any body. That is not a downgrade of the real swing. That is the real swing. stripped of everything that was never essential in the first place. So here is something you can do today, right now, standing where you are, with nothing but a golf club. Or if you don't have one handy, do it with a broom or a yardstick first, just to get the feel. Hold the club out in front of you, gripping softly, and let the club head hang toward the floor. Now, using mostly your hands and wrists, just swing the club head gently side to side like a slow pendulum, left, then right. Feel the weight of the head at the end of the shaft. Feel it swing out and reach the end of its travel and swing back. Don't force it, don't muscle it. Just feel the head's weight doing the work and let your hands respond to it. That feeling, that specific sensation of the weight of the club head swinging on the end of a relaxed shaft is the entire game. That is what the old man on the range meant. That is what Ernest Jones taught in that studio for 40 years. Everything else, all the positions, all the checkpoints, are just what naturally happens when you keep that feeling and let it grow into a full swing. Grip pressure is where most people kill it. So let me give you a number. Squeeze the club far softer than you think. Ernest Jones taught a grip light enough that you can still feel the weight of the club head clearly, and if you cannot feel that weight, you are holding too tight. A good check. Hold it firmly enough that the club won't fly out of your hands, and no firmer. If your forearms are tense, you have already lost the weight. The tighter you hold, the more you deaden the string, and the more you have to steer the whole thing by force. Try this pendulum feel for 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes, softly swinging the head and feeling its weight. You will feel your wrists start to hinge and unhinge on their own without you doing it. That is the weight setting and releasing the club by itself. That is the thing people pay for lessons to try to learn as a position, and here it is happening for free, automatically, because you finally let the weight lead. That alone, that 2-minute feel, will do more for the average weekend golfer than another gadget ever will. But it is only the doorway. Because there is one more piece, the specific drill straight out of that 1952 book, that turns this feeling into a real, full, repeating swing. And this is the piece almost nobody alive today has seen. Here it is. This is the thing Ernest Jones did with the penknife and the handkerchief, turned into a drill you can do at home this week. Take a house key, or a small padlock, or a heavy washer, any small, dense weight. Tie it to the end of a shoelace, or a piece of string, or a handkerchief, about 1 foot to 1.5 feet long. Now pinch the loose end between your thumb and first finger and let the weight hang down. Your only job is to swing that weight back and forth in front of you and make it trace a smooth, even arc, back and through. And as you do, count it as 2 beats, 1 on the way back and 2 on the way through. Back 2, a smooth, even, unhurried rhythm, the same tempo each way. Watch what the string does. When you swing the weight in a smooth 2-beat rhythm, the string pulls perfectly straight at the bottom of every pass. It never crumples. It never gets ahead of itself. The weight and the line organize into a flawless repeating arc, and you are not controlling any of it. You are only supplying the swing and the rhythm. The physics does the rest. Now, and this is the part that fixed my swing in one afternoon on that range. You take that exact feeling and that exact 2-beat rhythm to the golf club. Your hands are the fingers pinching the string. Your arms and the shaft are the string. The club head is the weight. You make the same smooth, even 2-beat swing, 1 going back, 2 coming through. And you focus on absolutely nothing except feeling the weight of the club head swing out and pull the shaft straight, exactly the way the key pulled the shoelace straight. I did this. I put down every swing thought I had ever paid for. I stood over the ball and I told myself one thing and one thing only. Swing the weight, 2 beats. Feel it pull straight. And I hit the purest, straightest shot I had struck in 3 years. Then I did it again and again. My slice, the slice that 11 lessons and $2,000 could not fix, was simply gone. Not managed, not patched, gone. Because a slice is what happens when you steer the string, and I had finally, for the first time in my life, let go and swung the weight. The reason this works and the gadgets don't is the reason Ernest Jones staked his life's teaching on. Every fault, you have the slice, the fat shots, the top shots, coming over the top, casting the club, every one of them is a symptom of steering the string instead of swinging the weight. You cannot fix a symptom by drilling a position, because the moment you stop drilling, the steering comes right back. But when you swing the weight, the root cause disappears, and the symptoms disappear with it all at once, on their own. That is why a man with one leg who understood this beat two-legged men who didn't. And that is why a 1952 book with a folding knife and a handkerchief holds more truth than a $2,000 shelf of modern training aids. You do not have to trust me. That is the beauty of it. You have a key and a shoelace somewhere in your house right now. You can prove this to yourself in 10 minutes tonight before you spend one more dollar on this game. Swing the weight, watch the string pull straight, feel the two beats, then take it to a club and feel your whole swing reorganize around it. It costs nothing. And it was true the whole time, sitting in a little out-of-print book while an entire industry sold you the complicated version. Here is what I really want you to take from all this. Somebody figured out the honest, simple truth of this game 100 years ago, proved it on one leg, wrote it down plainly, and it worked. And then it got quietly set aside, not because it was wrong, but because it was too simple to sell. You just took it back. That knowledge belongs to you now the way it always should have. And that is really who you are, if you have watched this far. You are the kind of person who suspects that the simple, honest answer often gets buried on purpose because somebody makes more money keeping you confused and dependent than keeping you free. You trust proof over packaging, and you would rather learn a thing once and own it forever than rent your own improvement one lesson at a time. So do something for me. Go find a key and a shoelace tonight, do the two-beat drill, then take that feeling to a club and tell me what happened. Did your slice change? Did the ball fly straighter than it has in years? Leave a comment and tell me the very first shot you hit after you stopped steering and started swinging the weight. I read them, and I want to know if it hit you the way it hit me on that range. And if you believe, like I do, that the best practical knowledge in this world has been quietly buried because somebody profits from your confusion, then come along with me. This channel is a small rebellion of ordinary people digging up the honest old methods and taking them back, one at a time. Subscribe and stand with us. Because the next thing I uncovered is about the golf ball itself, a forgotten detail from the old equipment records about how far a ball was actually meant to travel, and why what you're playing today was quietly built to make you buy more of them. You are going to want to hear that one. I'll see you there. So here's where we go next. This video showed you the idea, but inside I hand you the full Ernest Jones drill, step by step, so you can groove it tonight. And if something isn't clicking, ask me right there and I answer you myself, not some robot. You won't be alone either. You belong in the Old Ways Almanac. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen, cancel anytime with one click. Come join me.